In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns and whether I think they're legitimate contenders or not for this season, the 2021 NBA season, to win an NBA championship. So as we know, the Phoenix Suns for a long time now have missed the playoffs for a lot of years in a row and have been led by Devin Booker. But this season in the offseason, they went out and made a big trade to get Chris Paul on the team, really that facilitator and leader that they needed on the team, and they're playing incredible this season. Personally, I didn't expect them to be this good, and I actually had them just missing the playoffs even. I actually had them in the 9 seed in my Western Conference standings predictions, so they completely blew that out of the water, proved me wrong and a few other people wrong. Some people saw this coming from the Phoenix Suns, but personally, I didn't. And what I'm going to be doing in today's video is analyzing what they've done really well this season and if they have enough to be a legitimate NBA championship contender for this season. Before we get started, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my new videos and so that we can continue the road to 1K subscribers on the channel. With that being said, let's get started. So currently, as I'm recording this video, the Phoenix Suns are sitting in 2nd place in the Western Conference, as I mentioned, really exceeding the expectations of a lot of NBA fans out there, including myself, and they're actually 1 game back right now of the Utah Jazz for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, and they've been sitting in this number 2 position for a while, and have really kept it consistent throughout the entire season, getting wins really consistently, and right now, they have a record of 40-15 for a win percentage of around 73%, which when you think about it is absolutely insane for a young developing team like this. And this is actually the 2nd best record in the entire NBA as well, as I mentioned, 1 game behind the Utah Jazz in the West. And there's actually only 17 games left in the season for the Phoenix Suns as I'm recording this video, so as I mentioned, they've really kept it consistent throughout this entire season. At the start, I thought it was just a fluke that they got off to a really good start and that they might end up like a lower seeding playoff team, but they've really kept it consistent and are truly one of the best teams in the NBA. So let's look at what's really working for them this season. On the offensive end of the floor, they have a really good system and ranked 6th in the NBA in offensive efficiency. Monty Williams has done a really good job with this team's system and how they get into a lot of pick and roll action with some good playmakers like their main guys up top, and of course Chris Paul, who's still one of, if not the very best passer and playmaker in the NBA, and of course Devin Booker comes off the pick and roll with DeAndre Ayton and hits a lot of pull-up threes, and he obviously has a very good overall scoring game, and really just overall their offense fits well with everyone on the court since they get into a lot of pick and roll action with DeAndre Ayton being the screen setter, and they have a lot of guys that can spread the floor and provide consistent shooting, and they're also very good at doing things like driving and kicking. They have a lot of great playmakers on the team, and they really just work as an overall good unit together, kind of like the Utah Jazz have been doing as well this season. Their offense just flows very well. As I mentioned, they have a lot of great off-ball shooters, and their main play here is the pick and roll up top, especially with Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton, also with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton, and their new offensive system has been so good this season that it's got them the 6th best offensive efficiency rating in the NBA. But what really stands out to this team and what's been really different from this team from past Phoenix Suns teams over the last few years has been their defense and how they actually rank 5th in the NBA in defensive efficiency. So they almost have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense, which is exactly what you need to win an NBA title or at least contend for one. And really just overall this season, their defensive system has been very impressive. They've added a few guys like Jay Crowder, whose impact this season on this team has pretty much gone unnoticed for a lot of the season. He's doing on the offensive end of the floor, but is also a very versatile defender and adds a lot of value to this team on the defensive end of the floor. Then you've also got a guy like Mikal Bridges, who has really improved this season on both ends, but especially defensively, is really playing like one of the best defenders in the NBA, constantly guards the other team's best player night in and night out, and is also very versatile. And then I look at a guy like DeAndre Ayton, who could legitimately be this team's defensive anchor down the road in their future, and he just does a really good job of doing things like defending the pick and roll. He's very good on rotations and help, and does an absolutely fantastic job of protecting the rim, getting block shots, and he's also a very good rebounder. Overall, defensively, this team has a lot of great pieces that fit in together, and again, Monty Williams has done a really good job with their defensive system this year. You can tell they practice their defensive a lot. They're very comfortable with things like rotations, helping, and cutting off drives, and you can tell that this team is really committed to their defensive system because this is the first year with kind of their new team. A lot of new guys have come in, especially Chris Paul being that new kind of leader of the team, but their defense looks flawless. And by looking at how this team plays defense, you would think that they've been playing their defense for 5 years together because they're so comfortable with each other on the defensive end of the floor with communications and how they know each other's strengths and weaknesses and how they can really shut down the other team's offense night in and night out using their strengths, communicating, helping, and really just having a great overall defense. I look at Chris Paul as still a very good perimeter defender. As I mentioned, guys like Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder being very versatile and can defend on ball extremely well. And then DeAndre Ayton is your classic center who can defend pretty much anything in the paint, is a very good post defender. And as I mentioned, he's great with rotations and overall just protecting the rim. So this team has a great overall offensive system and defensive system. As I mentioned, ranking 6th in the league in offensive efficiency and 5th in the league in defensive efficiency. And so far, they definitely look like a championship caliber team. So I want to focus in on a few specific players here, because I look at the Phoenix Suns and I see their 2 star players in Devin Booker and Chris Paul performing really well this season, and I definitely think that'll carry over to the playoffs for these 2 players specifically. I look at Chris Paul as a guy who came in and basically completely turned this team around because of his leadership and his playmaking, and I was doing exactly what this team wants him to do, averaging around 16 points per game, so his production with scoring has dropped a little bit, but he is aging. Of course, that's going to come with aging, but he's still averaging 9 assists per game this season, and overall is really just this team's main leader and playmaker and has done a fantastic job with them and also making his teammates around him a lot better. Devin Booker this season has done exactly what we all expected from him, averaging around 25 points per game, and has really improved his efficiency as well, shooting around 49% from the field this season as a guy who takes a lot of tough shots and is a shooting guard. And really, Chris Paul's playmaking goes great with Devin Booker's scoring, and this duo has worked out exactly how the Phoenix Suns want it to. And then a guy like DeAndre Ayton, I can really see him being an X factor for this team, especially when it comes playoff time. This season, he's doing exactly what they wanted him to do, averaging around 15 points per game on an extremely efficient 63% from the field, also 10 rebounds per game, along with, as I mentioned, very good defense. So kind of this big 3 here has gone exactly the way that the Suns wanted it to, basically their best case scenario, and because of it, they're definitely looking like a championship contender. But what really stands out for this team for me is their role players. I look at guys like Mikal Bridges, Cameron Payne, Cameron Johnson, and Dario Saric as all guys that have really upped their games this season, and their production, especially with scoring, has really improved. And I also look at a guy like Jay Crowder, who this team signed, and he's also provided them with exactly what they wanted out of a Jay Crowder type of guy: consistent shooting and really good at overall versatile defense. So all of these role players have really played a big part in the Phoenix Suns, and I really think that was the big turning point for them. Of course, getting Chris Paul was what propelled them into a playoff team, but the reason they're playing this well this season is because of how all these role players have stepped up their games. So basically, with all of these individual players, the Suns are getting exactly what they want out of them, and they're playing their roles perfectly. Pretty much their offense, defense, and depth have all been at elite levels this season, and right now they're definitely looking like championship contenders for sure. So really the only question we have to ask ourselves now is, can the Phoenix Suns compete with the big dogs in the Western Conference? And I'm talking once the Lakers and the Clippers get fully healthy and ready for playoff time, they are obviously going to be the teams to beat in the Western Conference. So can the Phoenix Suns compete with these teams? Absolutely they can. They have everything it takes to compete with the Lakers and the Clippers. I just don't know if they're better than them yet. I think right now, fully healthy, I'd put the Phoenix Suns as the 3rd best team in the Western Conference, because when we look at teams like the Lakers and the Clippers, I definitely see them as the front runners still, since they obviously have great offenses, defenses, role players, and great overall teams, but the difference between them and the Phoenix Suns is star power, and how the Lakers obviously have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. They still have the best player in the league in LeBron, and the Clippers have Kawhi, who, as we know, when he plays at his best, he could legitimately play like the best player in the NBA. And the Phoenix Suns don't have that yet, but they still have really clutch guys that I think could perform very well in the playoffs. I look at a guy like Chris Paul, who's very experienced, and if you want him to, he can definitely go get a bucket for you down the stretch of games in the clutch moments of playoff games. And also Devin Booker has hit some big time shots in his career, and I think he has what it takes to be clutch as well. He hasn't been great in the clutch moments this season, but I think he has what it takes to do well in the playoffs. And really, when you need him to score a bucket in the very clutch moments of games, I think Devin Booker can definitely come up clutch with you with a bucket. But as I mentioned, I legitimately see this team as a team that can compete with the fully healthy Lakers and Clippers, and you never know what's going to happen in the playoffs. For all we know, LeBron James could get injured in the second round, and they could then face the Phoenix Suns, and the Phoenix Suns obviously have the advantage once LeBron is out. We don't know, but if both of these teams are fully healthy, I'm talking about the Suns, and when they're facing potentially the Lakers and the Clippers, I think the Suns have a chance to compete with them. I still think the Lakers and Clippers are a little bit better overall, and they have a little bit more star power, and as I mentioned, the Suns don't have really that top 10 type of player, but I still think that they could compete with them, and I legitimately think the Suns are better than other teams in the West, like the Utah Jazz, the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Denver Nuggets. I think the Suns have what it takes to be better than those teams. As I mentioned, basically a top 5 offense, defense, guys that can really perform in the playoffs, and a great supporting cast. So there you have it. That is the end of today's video, and to wrap it up, my conclusion for the Phoenix Suns this season is that they are definitely legitimate contenders, are probably the 3rd best team, at least in my opinion, when fully healthy, and aren't better than the Lakers and Clippers yet, but definitely have a chance to compete with them. The Suns should definitely be going all in on this year, and they also have a bright future, and I can definitely see this team winning a championship in the very near future. Thank you all for watching this video. As I mentioned, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any new videos, and I'll see you all next video.